Still Poddable in the playoffs. Still Poddable in the playoffs. Right. Gotta get that ring in the playoffs. Still Poddable in the playoffs. Still Poddable. The Boston Celtics still Poddable. Banner 18. These are all dogs. Playoffs beat the heat, you gotta know. Let's go Celtics, let's go. Come motherfucking Celtics, let's go.
Welcome to Still Poddable, the best Boston Celtics podcast here on the interwebs. I am Sam Jam Packard, joined by Brian Robb of MassLive.com and by Jay King from The Athletic. And it is official. The series we have been previewing for the past 3 days, we're going to preview it some more here, folks, because the Dallas Mavericks take down the Minnesota Timberwolves in 5 games. Just a dreadfully embarrassing performance from the Minnesota Timberwolves. So you have to really question if they were ever good. But the Luka Doncic, dominant, 20 points in the first quarter. Kyrie Irving, also good. Gonna be tough to guard those guys. I'm just going to get out in front of it and say it right now. Probably one of the biggest challenges for the Celtics upcoming in the NBA Finals. Jay, what was your reaction, I guess, to Dallas pulling this out in Game 5? And do you have any new thoughts about kind of the matchup coming up against the Mavericks?
I don't think it's one of the Celtics' biggest challenges. I think it will be the Celtics' biggest challenge by far to date.
That was the joke.
The Miami Heat had nothing for them. The Cavs had nothing for them. The Pacers had a little for them, but not a lot for them. We couldn't steal a game. And now they're running into Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, one of the most skilled duos in the game today. And especially in Luka, somebody who can just bend a game to his will, make all the right decisions, move all the chess pieces, and pick you apart with his brain. So it's going to be an enormous challenge for them. It is going to test them like nothing else has this season. It's been a smooth season so far, and now they have to deal with a team that since the trade deadline, since even before the trade deadline, has really skyrocketed and become a good defensive team around Doncic and Kyrie, who are going to score enough by themselves and create enough for others to make sure that offense is dangerous too. So I'm looking forward to this one. It has all the storylines. It should have great basketball on each side. This is going to give a totally different feel than any series the Celtics have played in this playoff so far. Everything else to date felt like a given, and now in some ways like the real playoff gauntlet will begin.
Yeah, is it fair to say that are Kyrie and Luka like the best 2 players the Celtics have faced this postseason at this point? Maybe not like with Kyrie, I guess that's the bigger question, but in terms of how they're playing right now, is that a fair assessment?
I mean, Andrew Nembhard did do some things in the Eastern Conference Finals, but I think in terms of pure talent,
I would say Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah, like Mitchell maybe.
Kyrie Irving.
Yeah, but Donovan Mitchell was the number one.
And he played 3 games.
And he played 3 games. So it was pretty damn good in those 3 games. I think the thing and we saw this tonight, where it's like Luka has an amazing run there, and he's able to sit on the bench, and Kyrie kind of just takes over the scoring. I think you're absolutely right, Jay, that this will be the most challenging matchup for the Celtics in the playoffs. But I also think the reverse is true, in that this will be the Celtics are the most difficult team the Mavericks will be going up against. Like, the Minnesota Timberwolves just didn't have an offense, save for, so I think, some off shooting in Game 4 by Kyrie and Luka. Their offense was just bad. And I think probably the Thunder are the best team the Mavericks have played, and they're just so lacking in size, and they didn't have a really great performance from J-Dub. I think the Celtics are obviously the most complete team. I don't think Luka or Kyrie, although the Mavericks are a much better defensive team, were really tested that much defensively so far in this playoffs. And so the size that the Celtics have I think it's going to present a lot of challenges for the Mavericks, and that's, I think, what makes the series fun. I think the most fun dynamic about this series, and I don't know if this is necessarily a storyline, and I think we should do this exercise right now. Luka's obviously the best player. I know there's a lot of Jason Tatum Twitter fans out there. Luka's just, and people are going to get angry at me. Josh B is screaming at me right now to talk about how Jason Tatum's a better defender than Luka Doncic, which is absolutely true. But the things that Luka could do offensively can take over a game. Those things matter in the playoffs. And so I don't think it's that crazy of a statement to say Luka's number one. Where do the Celtics rank in terms of the next best players? Because I think it goes Tatum, Brown, then maybe Kyrie Irving. But I'm curious your guys' thoughts on, like, if you're ranking kind of the best players in the series. For me, the obvious is Luka, Tatum. But what do you guys think it's after that? We'll start with you, B-Rob.
I mean, I think you have to go Brown after Tatum, and then likely Kyrie Irving, and then I think you have a bunch of Celtics after that. And the question is like, where are the gaps between the rest of the guys, and when the gaps within those top four, Jay, I feel like is going to be maybe not outright decide the series, but certainly going to play a big part in, leveling the field.
See, I think people will spend a lot of time ranking. I've already seen Channing Frye and Richard Jefferson try to rank guys in this series. Now we're doing it. I don't think it will come down to the best players on these teams. I think the biggest advantage for the Celtics is further down the roster, where it's Derek White and Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis and Al Horford versus a Dallas supporting cast that is like super athletic, super long, super defensive minded, but they don't have the same type of two-way players that Boston does. And I'm not sure that they're built to match up against Boston, because Boston, assuming Kristaps plays and is back for the start of the series, Boston has two big men that will drag the rim protectors on the Mavericks out to the perimeter, put them in positions where they're most uncomfortable. And then you can sag off Derek Jones Jr., you can sag off PJ Washington, you can sag off Dante Exum if he plays, you can sag off, like, there are just so many guys that the Celtics can play off of, and I don't think that's the same case the other way. So, like, it's easy to debate whether Kyrie's better than Jalen. Kyrie's had a great year. He's been fantastic this year. Jalen obviously has a defensive advantage, size advantage. But to me, like, the Celtics, what separates them is that they have 6 legitimate two-way guys, and the Mavericks don't. And there will be holes on Dallas, and I think this is just a really tough matchup for the Mavericks. I could be proven wrong. Luka could just be so incredible. Kyrie could just be, on another one of his runs like he had next to LeBron years ago. But it just feels to me, and maybe I'm being dismissive of what Dallas has done here and the way they've played since the trade deadline and even before it. But I just think this is a really tough matchup for the Mavericks. It will test them in ways that they haven't been tested yet.
Prize Picks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 5 million members. It is the most fun and exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats for a shot up to win 100 times your cash. With Prize Picks, you can turn $10 into $1,000 in a single game watching your favorite sports this summer. You can make a Prize Picks lineup in little as 60 seconds. You just need to pick more or less on 2 or 6 player stat projections, and you're locked in. If you're looking for promotions, Prize Picks has got you covered every single week, from lowering select stat projections on Tuesday, which increases your chances of getting that win, to getting your entries fee back if you have a losing lineup on Fridays. The finals means more on Prize Picks, and so do the star players. You get boosted payouts on select basketball stars that you won't find anywhere else. There's always Prize Picks, and this is the perfect time to try out something new as basketball is winding down. You can try out the esports this month, because every Wednesday and Saturday in June, if your lineup doesn't win, you'll get your entry free back. Choose from Counter-Strike 2, Call of Duty, League of Legends, and more. I made my first $10 deposit and received an instant $10 bonus. So if you have the skills, you can play for a shot at turning your $10 into $1,000. Prize Picks is available in more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, and Georgia. Join today. Use the promo code CLNS for your first deposit match up to $100. That is promo code CLNS. Prize Picks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy. I feel like it's a cliche at this point. It's like the best player in the series wins playoffs in the NBA. But I think that I just saw a stat on Twitter. Like, this is the largest win discrepancy since the Warriors and the Cavs, where I think the Warriors beat them in 5 games that first KD year. The Boston Celtics have been the best team in basketball for the entire year. They have been dominant, and it's largely because of their depth. Of Jay mentioned, like, guys 1 through 6. In theory, as like a basketball, I was about to describe myself as a basketball purist, but I don't think I fit in that category. But just you would think the team aspect, there's 5 guys on the court. It's 5 top 50 players, wherever you are ranking those. Though I think you're right, Jay, they have such an advantage where it's like, yes, Derrick Jones Jr. and PJ Washington have had some moments in these playoffs, but this is the NBA Finals, and they have nowhere near the talent level of Drew Holiday, Derek White, or Kristaps Porzingis. And I've been impressed by the Mavericks bigs, especially Lively and his passing. And Daniel Gafford has done quite well, but they're also unproven in the playoffs. And so, B-Rob, I feel like it's just like the Celtics have done a really good job this year leaning into the team mentality, as Joe Mazzulla says, defining success in different ways, and sacrificing. And so I think the Celtics, in order to win this series, need to lean into whatever that matchup is. We're going to go to that guy, and we're just going to have complete team success. And it's not relying on just one, or like Jason and Jalen being better than Kyrie and Luka. Because I think the Celtics can win this series if that matchup is close. Luka and Kyrie maybe score more, but then you have a 20-point game from Drew Holiday, or a 20-point game from Kristaps, or a 20-point game from Derek White, which we've seen all year is plenty capable of. It's not just reliant on the Jalen and Jason to kind of do everything for the Celtics.
Yeah. Offensively, there's going to be places for the Celtics to go every time down the floor. And that's been, and more so than probably some of the opponents they've faced in the East playoffs. Like, the Dallas is a much better defensive team of late, but weak links like Kyrie and Luka, even when they're getting after it, like they, with the talent the Celtics have, they should go after them there. The biggest question to me is defensively, the Celtics in the series. It's like, when Luka and Kyrie are just that good, it doesn't matter that you have Derek White and Drew Holiday, and they're still getting to the paint. And how much are you helping off of PJ Washington and Derrick Jones Jr., who their track record says you help off them plenty. We'll take our chance with that, but they've hit enough of those during this postseason right now, and they're gonna be getting wide open looks, and no one sets up more corner threes in the NBA open corner than the Mavericks. Like, that's a dangerous game when Luka has it going like he has it in Game 5, and Kyrie has it going like he's had it for much of that series against the Wolves. And so that's, for me, when tough decisions are going to be made, and how much do you adapt over the course of the game flow. I feel like, Jay, that's the intriguing thing to me, whether they take the long view of that and just try to keep everyone home and let those guys get theirs, in terms of Luka and Kyrie, or if they try to really, take the ball out of those guys' hands as much as possible and make the other guys prove it.
I think you let them get theirs. I think you use a similar game plan to what the Celtics showed early in the Cavaliers series, which was basically like, let Donovan Mitchell go one-on-one, let him get all the points, and take away the guys around him. Because, like, Derrick Jones Jr. is not going to get off by himself. PJ Washington is not going to get off by himself. Kyrie Irving is amazing, but the Celtics should have enough size and physicality and versatility to at least make things tough for him around Luka. If you're switching a lot, if you're not, if you're being smart on the pick and rolls, like, you can take away some of the alley-oops that Luka likes to throw, turn him into a scorer, and just limit the easy buckets for everyone else, because they're not going to make hard buckets. Luka and Kyrie will make a ton of hard buckets. They will make almost nothing but hard buckets. But I just think the Celtics, if it were me game planning for that team, I would be trying to force Luka and Kyrie into being scorers and make sure that they didn't make things easy for everybody else, because especially with Luka, when you send too much help, he will pick you apart. When you're doubling him, it's over. Like, he's going to find an open guy, and that's how your defense breaks down. It's hard to stay solid when Luka is hitting step back threes and Luka is doing amazing things, and it takes a lot of mental resilience to do that. But if you force him to take and make tough shots over and over again, then the other part of that I think is also important is if you make him score and you don't, and you make him go against one-on-one coverage, then he's using more energy because he's not getting into the easy passes that kind of take the pressure off of him. So I would just be trying to make him a scorer. And he'd probably have 40, 50, and so maybe a 40-point triple-double. Who knows? But if you do a good job on everybody else, then I think you can hold down that Mavericks offense anyway.
I think it comes down to a classic Joe Mazzulla math thing, is if you can force the Mavericks into taking a lot of twos, and like obviously Luka's going to hit some step back threes. Obviously Kyrie is pretty lethal from deep. But we saw the Timberwolves in Game 5 were just awful and didn't really have an answer. But we saw them doubling in the second half, and it's just like such an easy pass to Lively, basically at the free throw line, quick kick it over for wide open threes. I think the Celtics are I think you're absolutely right, Jay. Like, we saw the Celtics basically do the same thing with Donovan Mitchell. We saw the Celtics give up just how many dunks to Evan Mobley, because it was just like, we're going to take away the three. We're going to let the roll man kind of happen there. And the Celtics are a high volume, high percentage 3-point shooting team. And I think you just do your best to run the Mavericks off the line. You let Kyrie and Luka, like you said, get theirs. And the Celtics haven't really shot well from three this entire playoffs. If they can kind of bounce back to even just their regular season percentages, I do think there's I'm trying to think of any games in the playoffs the Celtics have an amazing shooting performance. I think there's still, like, we haven't seen that quintessential Celtics dominant offensive, like more than 23s in a game performance yet. And so I think there's high potential there. There's really not a lot other teams can do if the Celtics are shooting that well. And so I agree, Jay. I think it's just about the mental toughness of like Luka Doncic potentially scoring 40 points in a finals game, step back threes. Can you just kind of live with that and stick to your game plan and just be disciplined enough to be like, yeah, that's going to happen. But at the end of the day, we're ultimately think like this, our strategy is going to win out.
Because I don't think that's where he kills you. I think he kills you by getting everyone else involved. He kills you by breaking down your defense so that Lively and Gafford get easy offensive rebounds. He kills you by just like making you overreact to him, and then everything else opens up. So, and he's awesome, man. This is going to be a fun series. This is, and it's going to be such a different challenge than the Pacers. Like, they play 100% different than Indiana. It's just like slow it down, possession game, where Luka is just trying to pick you apart, whereas the Pacers were just like
movement
on the fly, as unpredictable as it gets. Luka's not unpredictable. He's just, you can know exactly what he's going to do, and then he runs it, and he finds a way to beat you anyway, because he can beat you in 100 different ways with the same pick and roll. I'm pumped for this series. I think it's going to be fantastic. I think it's just, the drama should be fantastic, and it's also cool that the NBA is like kind of ushering in a new era. Like, it's either going to be Luka winning his first championship, or it's going to be Tatum and Brown winning their first championship. And either way, I think with the rosters the way they are, like, these teams could factor into the conversation for a long, long time.
Yeah, it's a great point. It's that, and there's something that's just like one of probably like 10, 15 fun storylines you can look at from all different angles of this series right now, whether it's the Kyrie stuff, the KP stuff, just down the line. And so looking at that dynamic and having that turn the page going forward there.
The NBA Finals are here, and I can't think of a better time to try and go see the Celtics in action. And if you want to go to the game, go to GameTime.co or download the GameTime app with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee. GameTime takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. GameTime is a fantastic app and the perfect way for you to get into the NBA Finals, or if you just want to see a concert in Boston, you want to go to the Sox game. There are so many fun events in and around the city this summer, and GameTime is the way to get into the arena. I used GameTime to go see Dan Soder, one of my favorite comedians, at the Wilbur a couple of months ago. It was a fantastic way to get into the arena. They have last-minute deals, flash deals, zone deals, all-in pricing, and it allows you to see the total up front with no surprise fees at checkouts. You can see the view from your seat, and they have the lowest price guarantee. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA Finals tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download GameTime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
The supporting cast for both these teams, I think, is going to be fascinating for this series. Like, outside of the top six for the Celtics, and the Mavericks have, had no big name. No one is going to change the series as far as their shot creation stuff, but PJ Washington isn't playing well. The Gafford Lively tandem, like their rim protection and offensive rebounding has helped carry them past OKC and Minnesota for parts of this series now. And so as you guys both look at this series, like who's going to be prominently involved here outside of the top six for the Celtics right now, based on the matchups that are waiting here? Like, is this going to be one where eventually Joe's just going to get to that top six and decide, obviously Porzingis can run regular minutes? Is that going to be what's going to be seen most of the minutes here?
I think it's going to be interesting to see how much. I think Peyton Pritchard is their seventh guy off the bench, and he's been the kind of like go-to guy to get the majority of the minutes. I think he's easily hunted. Him and Sam Hauser are easily hunted, and so it's like stealing maybe 6 minutes here, maybe playing them more in the first halves, or maybe they're playing them while Luka's not on the court. It's very interesting because the Mavericks play such a slow down, deliberate style where they can really hunt guys. I imagine the Celtics are going to be doing a lot of switching. And so Luka's going to be able to go one-on-one against who he wants. And I think it'll be interesting to see how willing the Celtics are to be like, all right, for these 4 minutes, do your best, Peyton Pritchard, or do your best, Sam Hauser. But Jay, I don't know what do you think about those guys? Is there a surprise bench performance from someone else we're not thinking of?
To me, it's how much of a leash will Joe Mazzulla have with those guys? How long will he run with them? At what point of the series will he decide, you know what, we need guys who are more capable defensively. We need guys who can stick with Luka and stick with Kyrie and give them more troubles than Hauser or Pritchard will. And really, I mean, all season, the bench has been a major factor in the Celtics' identity. Like, they have, for the most part, played a lot of their best basketball with those guys on the court. And so I don't think Mazzulla will take it lightly cutting down his rotation. But because of how much pressure Luka puts on you, because of how big he is, because Kyrie is so skilled and can get to wherever he wants on the court against anybody, never mind guys who are not absolutely elite defenders, then I think Mazzulla could be put into a tough decision. Pritchard's been pretty good through the playoffs. Hauser has not found his stroke, but I think also, like, it's possible because of the places where the Celtics can target, because I think the Mavericks will have to send more help, that this will become a Hauser series and that he will get open jump shots because the Celtics are able to beat the initial defender and get the Mavericks into rotations and free him up. So I wouldn't discount those guys for making an impact. Not after the way they've played all season, but it's a tougher matchup for them just because of how great individually as offensive players both Luka and Kyrie are.
And on the other end, I think the Mavericks, this is not a deep Mavericks team. I mean, PJ Washington and Derrick Jones Jr. heading into this playoffs were not guys you would like necessarily write home about.
Well.
And then
they've played really
well. But it's like, how much Kleba are they going to play? Or is there like a lot of Josh Green? I feel like anytime Tim Hardaway Jr. is on the court, that's probably good for the Celtics. I do have an irrational fear of Jaden Hardy because Jaden Hardy has an irrational belief in himself. And I feel like that guy can just score 8 runs. He's such a J King player, but I do think like he's a guy who can come. He's like, what the fuck's Jaden Hardy doing scoring 8 points? And I feel like he has that in him. But I do like all the depth on the this option. Like I think Luka and Kyrie are both like pencil them in for 42 plus minutes per game. They're like, this is not a huge a deep team for the Mavericks there, B-Rob.
It's not. And then like they just have a bunch of wild card guys off the bench, and in the way that's good, like they'll have options to go at, and maybe you can go Hardy, you can go Dante Exum for guards. Like you got Josh Green that he's more consistent off there, a little bit more of a defender than Hardy for sure. But no doubt, like this is I do think like the bench matchups for both these teams, that's a kind of underrated part of the series. Like the Celtics didn't win the bench matchup against the Pacers, didn't matter. But they were really good in the first 2 rounds, and they turned some games in those series. And this is one where, Luka and Kyrie, if they have it going, like they can outplay the Celtics starters here or there. So the bench is going to matter to a point that Joe Mazzulla allows it to. And I think when you look at just the toll that the bigs are going to have to, carry, the load they're going to have to carry in the series with Horford and Porzingis in particular. And we don't even know yet, like, how much can Porzingis play? Is he a situation where when he does come back, is he only going to be able to play 20, 25 minutes just because his body's just not ready for it yet? And then that opens a bunch of doors there too. So I do think the Celtics talent-wise have been the more consistent bench all year long, and they're going to need to be in this series, I think, because that's something where the other advantages might not be as much as in their favor.
And what shouldn't be overlooked about Dallas is just how revamped or vamped that Mavericks defense is over the final 20 games of the regular season. They had the number 1 defense in the entire NBA, and you don't expect that from a team with Luka and Kyrie, but those guys bought in. Luka seems to be in much better shape than he has been in previous years, and they just surrounded those guys with nothing but size and athleticism. And like they have elite athleticism. Derrick Jones Jr. is as bouncy as anybody in the league. PJ Washington, for a 4 guy, is both big and he can move. He can slide his feet. Gafford is a rim threat. Lively comes in as a rim threat. He's one of the best rookies in basketball. The level of polish he has as a first-year big man is wildly impressive. And so the Mavericks defense has been great. The key for the Celtics will be whether they can pick on some of the Mavericks' weaknesses, whether they can go at Luka and Kyrie, whether they can, use the Mavericks rim protection against the Mavericks and get them into rotation. Like I said earlier, get those guys, Lively and Gafford, out of where they're comfortable and force them to guard Porzingis and Horford on the perimeter. But this team has just a lot of defensive talent, and Jason Kidd has proven himself as a legitimate defensive coach. So it's going to be a problem. And obviously Anthony Edwards and Karl Towns had just a nightmare time for most of that series trying to score the basketball efficiently.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an extremely fun finals. I think the corner threes, corner threes, I think is going to be a stat I'm going to check in every single game because I think that's going to be a real indicative of like how both offensive are flowing. We got 4 more podcasts before game 1, And so we'll have plenty of opportunities to break it all down. If there's anything you want us to talk about, any dumb gimmicks you want, or particular guests, feel free to, this is a Gods and Legends pod. So let us know in the comments. We'll try to do our best in the 4 podcast next week, coming up before game 1. 2 things of junk before this, before I end this podcast. The new owner of the Mavericks, real dud of a personality, did not handle the trophy celebration whatsoever well. Was looking for Mark Cuban there. And then if Derek Lively shaves his head like Derek White, watch out, because he's got the same hairline, similar looking hair, and we know kind of bald Derek has been unleashed. I'm just saying it's in Derek Lively's future, and I would be scared of that. I'm not even going to let you two respond to that. That'll be the end of this podcast. We appreciate all you guys for listening. We'll be back with 4 more podcasts before the NBA Finals. We appreciate all of you guys. This has been another episode of Still Poddable.
Still Poddable, Still Poddable. The Boston Still Poddable, Still Poddable. Oh, yeah. Slow down from eating and drinking and all that wild stuff.